Hi there, I'm your host McAuley Tucker, and you're listening to The McAuley Tucker Show, the podcast where I sit down with some of the most accomplished and fascinating individuals in the entertainment and business industry. From celebrities to industry leaders, our guests offer unique perspectives and inspiring stories that will educate and inform you. Join me as I sit down with my next guest to cover their humble beginnings, challenges they faced, as well as their accomplishments in life. You are bound to learn something new, so sit back and enjoy the interview. In this episode of the McAuley Tucker Show, we're going to sit down with Christiaan. He is one of the world's most premier hairstylists, and in this episode, we're just going to sit down and learn more about his life. He's had his work appear in many Vogue magazines. He's worked with so many countless celebrities. He's even created iconic hairstyles that we know and love today. So sit back, and I think you'll enjoy this interview a lot. And so I just kind of wanted to ask you, straight at the beginning, can you talk about what that means, to you and how you would explain that to people like me? Basically, what do you do? What do you do for a living? What does a top hairstylist look like?
It doesn't really translate in a feeling. But yes, and it is a big label. It just kind of creeps up on you on a day-to-day basis because of every act counts. As good as your job the last day. How it happened is another story. I will get to that, but how to carry that label is not a big deal. It flashes through my mind sometimes when I walk through the grocery store or sit on the toilet and I by myself. People consider me one of the best. Globally, you said.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big fan of the earth, and the earth is so huge, and the subject hair is so universal. To get up there is a satisfying feat. Me, for sure.
Yeah.
But it is not something that you walk around with every day. I still have to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then how do you get there, you said?
How would you explain that, like to somebody like me? You explain what you did, what you do for a living, just for people who don't really know what that looks like.
You get there, I got there unknowingly.
Okay.
Completely unknowingly. You have ambition and you have a job, or you look for work and you get your work and you come from somewhere and you strive to get ahead. Getting ahead, looking back, is many days and even many more hours. And God knows how many jobs, one after the other, every day. And those every days are not in the view of trying to become the best. They are only about trying to do a good job that day. And that is what I've always had in my mind. Do a good job that day.
Yeah.
And over the long run, you realize, hey, that counts up day after day after day. And if you don't burn your bridges, it keeps counting up. You burn your bridges, you lose. You don't burn your bridges, it keeps piling up. And in my particular case, my particular quirky way of work, and not only that, the essence of what I felt about my profession and about my work was basically faithfully followed every single day. And as I say, that counts up, and people slowly but surely can't ignore you anymore because you become your work becomes visible and noted by a bigger and bigger and bigger audience. Now, granted, very quickly, my audience was superbly humongous. When I was 22, I realized my name was printed in Harper's Bazaar or Vogue 7 million times. Okay, well, it didn't. It made me feel good. Hey,
Yeah.
but you don't realize it's just a month. It's just a
Yeah.
pay. People go pop, 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 pop. But it counts up.
Yes.
Many years of that counts up. So, and it is not you who says you are among the best of the world. It's them out
Mhm.
there who say that, or who give you that throne. Well, that's the bottom line.
Yeah. That is deep, and that answered my question. And again, looking back, you've lived a wonderful life. You were extremely lucky to be involved in so many things. I know your initial steps in this career was hairstyling. It began in your father's barbershop in your homeland of Holland. And after, growing in your skills, you embarked on a journey that led you to New York City. But your entrance into the American fashion and beauty world took a twist because it was due to a case of mistaken identity. And I wanted to ask you, this case, of mistaken identity that led you to your invitation to observe the New York salons. How did that impact your career, and how would your life look differently if that had never happened?
Hey, buddy, it's like you got two doors. You got one door and you got another door.
Mhm.
I took that door. That was the door with the mistaken identity. I made the best of it. I have no idea what is behind the other door. I probably would have been good. But no, that door for sure was, as I keep calling it, it was a lucky fluke. Um, I made the best of it.
Yes.
While I didn't have a clue exactly what was exactly going on. How come I was there? I didn't question it. I just followed uh, the space after the door, and it was super in my favor. People liked me. They liked what I looked like. They started calling me cute. I hated it, but cute I was. Uh, I did good hair. They threw all kinds of people at me in the beginning to test me. Um, I passed the test over and over, and all these people together, uh, the result of their observations and recommendations, obviously, were positive enough for the company to make me creative director of Bergdorf Goodman. Less than 3-4 months after I arrived in New York and started working there for $70 home take money a week. And I was flabbergasted. I was super quiet because I didn't want to trip over my words or over. I couldn't hardly. I spoke English, but not very much.
Mhm.
I had to start all of that there too. So I was very quiet, and I just took the cues and the ABCs and got my confidence up more and more until um, um, I was recognized to a degree. I was sent to various high profile situations like
Mhm.
the Johnny Carson show or the March of Dime fashion show in the Waldorf Astoria ballroom. Hello. I was a kid from a village, but I was sent there, and and featured in print. And if the fashion show was finished, I was allowed to come out and get a bow. Hello. Whatever. But so that all was one thing after another, and until it settled down a bit in the end of the 60s, which at the same time, not only was it overwhelming on one end, that I was able to withstand the overwhelming wavy kind of thing and come out decent on the other side of the wave. You have to remember socially too. Women, gay people, it was all like basically a tumbling machine to me. But I passed. Yes. And when it all settled down, I had my confidence and I started sprouting further ideas. I came up with an idea for a beauty parlor that did only take care of the daughters or preferably the daughters of the fancy people from Fifth and Park that came into that beauty salon that I had only known up to then. And always felt like these daughters, they don't want to come to this fancy salon. They want to something by themselves. They want to just wash their hair. That was basically part of my spiel also. I did not want to support that nailed down hair that people have to say, don't touch me. Don't touch me. And I can't go swimming under the water. I didn't. I wanted the opposite. So that focused on the kids of these people, and I started a little beauty parlor, and on the 6th floor at Burger of Goodman. Well, things went kind of haywire there, where I felt they undercredited me. They took all my assistants, started that place, and I never my name there related anymore. And and then other things. Oh yeah, they decided everybody should wear blue uniforms, blue suits. And I had just come back from Paris, went shopping at Pierre Cardin, and I bought brown suits. I didn't want to go blue suits when I had new brown suits. Anyway, the bottom line was, you better go. So the next thing you know, 2 years later, I'm standing on the sidewalk, and I have no job.
Right.
Somewhat traumatic, obviously, because I may have had my confidence at that point, but still, there you are in New York. I also was newlywed at that point with my wife Mariana, who's still my wife, and 55 years later. And so, what are you going to do? But guess what? At Burger Goodman, I had solidified a good relationship with a lot of the fashion editors that had been sent to me originally when I had arrived for the company to to evaluate me. They had given free passes to all these beauty editor and fashion editors to come to the beauty salon to meet me, to get a coif thing. And by the time I got fired, they were good with me. And the next thing you know, I slowly started being able to getting asked anyway to go on shoots, which basically until that time was the realm of Candid with his 5 assistants, Suga, Maury, etc., who worked under the umbrella of Candid, Suga for Candid, Suga for blah blah blah. All of a sudden, I was Christiaan, hair by Christiaan, alone, no more beauty salon. That was the beginning of my freelance career.
I appreciate you sharing that. And again, even through all these, situations, a busy life, you learn and you grow, and everything that happens, even the small mistakes and the challenges, you grow and you become a better person and you become more skilled at the career that you're in. And again, you left a big mark. You were involved in a lot of really cool things. Your influence extended beyond, hairstyling. You played, a crucial role in defining the looks of, models and celebrities. But I wanted to kind of ask you, you've mentioned before that your cutting approach became less confined and more liberal over time. Could you elaborate on how your creative process has evolved since you started out to even now?
I kind of, I first faced cutting technique, regimental situation, nothing to do with my father barbershop, although that back in the early 80s, when I did the buzz and stuff, it's basically what I did in my father's barbershop. But in the women's department, Vidal Sassoon was king. His approach to cutting was superbly rigid and precise, painfully rigid and precise. Everybody went that way, needed to learn that way. I tried a little bit, but it was stifling. On top of that, the entire result still didn't fit in my theory of the future of free hair. No matter how sharp the lines were drawn and cut, it still did not allow for come out of the shower and go to work, or make love, go into bed and forget about it, or something. It just, it wasn't completely there either. That wasn't it. So it didn't completely fit into my thing. So I went slowly, crabbled away from there, and I did it. And I think there was my antidote to the sharpness of things, because I realized I for a long time had an image in my head of two horses running, one whose tail was cut perfectly straight, and another one whose tail was raggedy-do, Now, if you see them both running, the blonde tail goes, like an ocean liner in the sea. The other one is like a bunch of fishing boats, just jumping left and right in the water. And having had a taste at the end of the hippie time in New York, 67, 68, Central Park, you saw them all. We were in there. I went to Woodstock. I saw that hair.
Yeah.
That I liked. So I quietly changed my mode. I became much freer in cutting hair. I've always had the one method called effilé in French that somehow I must have picked up in my Dutch hairdressing school that I went to for half a year, which kind of breaks the solidness. Instead of cutting like this, it goes like that, that. And I always felt, because of those two horses, that gives more freedom to a person's head of hair. But then again, you get these opinions, and you get these, the Dutch word stokpaardje, I don't know what it is. They're the poles that you hold on to for a while, that become your way of doing things. But everything becomes, maybe not. And so I was always looking. I was always thinking of other things. And again, the 70s, when the Bobs, Karen Bjornsen, Halston, very strict, and boom, nothing happened. So day she comes over and boop, I take one side off. Bingo. That goes all over the world. You even, you get lauded for that. Grace Jones comes over. It was not my idea. It was the middle of the night. But I'm able and willing. She was such a fantastic person.
Mm-hmm.
And living outside of my living room, outside of my bedroom over there, screaming, it comes over, and I want this shaved. Nothing about the top yet. So okay, we shaved the side, and then the top we made flat. Boom, all over the world.
Yeah.
With your name attached. That is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how all these things work a little bit. Yeah. So, but and then that, so it goes on that way. What's next? The computer stuff starts. I'm thinking digital, pluses and minus, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So that's how I got to the digit head of my son coming out of the pool. His hair stuck to his head. So at that point, I cannot do this, or I can. So I just took the scissor and I started cutting it plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. Those things make a mark,
Yes.
and even though people, everybody's looking for things to do. I know thousands of hairdressers, but I've been lucky enough to hit certain marks that, oh, oh, you can do that. Cool. Because then the next thing, of course, the big thing is Bonnie Berman's buzz in Milan. Yeah, it was brewing in my brains for a while, and I was in a superb group of people in a situation that was ripe for anything, basically. Not exactly, because Vogue completely disavowed any knowledge of the whole thing for years, for a year and a half. But we did it. And the Bonnie Berman thing, the buzz, where I shaved the back of her head, was designed with that in mind, that they wouldn't see it. Because, so we could go back to work the next day and make believe it didn't exist. Except in the middle of my doing it, the editor, Polly Mellon, the great Polly Mellon, walked in and completely screamed and freaked out and walked right back. So that was out of the bag. But yeah, and I must say that, well, between cutting of the few things, in terms of cutting hairstyle wise, the buzz was a major moment that took the world by storm, because I remember Marcos in Philippines being dethroned and masses of people on TV. And I already saw 2 weeks later people with buzzed haircuts. But hey, hey. And Grace Jones too.
Yeah.
That just automatically went everywhere. Carl Lewis right away did the little edgy thing of the same thing. So I hit very relevant marks in terms of people's hair, how people live with their hair, and that always was my core, the soul of my doing. That is what I had as I can't say mission, but it was a mission.
Yeah.
because I wouldn't do the other stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to go there. Everybody that would come up to me, I would test in terms of real or not, because I was into real. If they say no, move. I went to a wedding the other day, and lots of girls, lots of women, and I'm like, and lots of women I didn't know, but I couldn't help myself but go like, extensions. Well, I just have a sickness about. I do, I do have a hard time with certain trends, and I try not to follow them. But you cannot avoid them. Besides that, you're not alone. There are other people with influence, and but I can be super proud of that. My particular focus hit the right spot for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And I must say, lives, continues. There's even that buzz thing.
Yeah.
After I first did it, 1984, Milan. A couple of weeks later, the editor of GQ, good friend Jim, says, "Can we do it for GQ?" Oh man, this is after his boss, the head of Condé Nast, had already forbidden every editor to even touch the thing. He cannot. We don't want to see that. It's not feminine. It's not. Well,
Yeah.
goes. I like it. Let's have a shoot. So we did a shoot with Arthur and a whole bunch of models. Famous picture of the guy with his hair and here and there. Marcus. But anyway, it was canned, not to be published. So that kind of killed it at that time. But guess what? 30 years later, it's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Completely is the picture of man's hair right now. It's going to change soon because it's been a while.
Yeah.
Your hair, which is basically a version of what I learned in my father's barbershop.
Yeah.
I just put it into another. All right, I think I talked enough, right?
Yeah. So I know you did the whole haircut in the park thing, which I saw a video of, and that was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I really enjoyed that, seeing you going out and cutting people's hair. And you did kind of answer one of the questions I was going to ask, but you kind of explained it, living life. Obviously, your career is going to kind of impact the way you look at the world. So when you're walking around, you'll see people's hair, and you'll kind of have ideas of what you could do, and things like that. And this is a question I was really excited to ask. I don't know why, but I get my hair done, and I enjoy having a conversation with the barber, things like that, getting into conversations. And so I kind of wanted to ask you, you've been able to work with countless people. I only know a few, like, Lady Gaga and a bunch of other individuals. I would love to hear your process. When you have clients that you're sitting down and styling their hair, do you chat with them, or do you prefer to be more quiet? Could you, give us ideas on what this looks like? And even with people that you don't know, you have no idea who they are, you're just working with them. Basically, what does your approach look like?
On the top of it, I prefer to be quiet.
Okay.
But that is when the action happens. Around it, it is very important that you have that you get the vibe right. Very often, earlier, I've come to the conclusion that the prequel of a haircut is touch and feel. Touch and feel. To get the it's a social situation, even though it's a physical interaction between two people. But it is actually touching, and touching more than any other profession in the world. Even makeup doesn't come near it. You have to touch, you have to feel, you have to, and if you touch, when you touch, you give a sense. And the touch gives a sense back to you. And that is what you need to be able to read well. Because if you don't read that well, you trip. You completely trip. And so that's the touch and feel. Feel too always was important to me. It's one thing about touching people, you know, you as I just explained. Feel is when you get a sense of the vibe that the touch gives you, that the result of the touch. And this has nothing to do yet with the texture of the hair or anything. This is just a personal interaction. Now, I've been accused of overdoing it. Feel and the result, and because you can misread sometimes, but of course, this sounds all very delicate, and it's not necessarily all very delicate. It can be very open and raw and this and that, but in the back of your head, you have to be able to accumulate all of that, and so that you don't burn that little bridge between you and the person that you might otherwise be able to walk over to do a good job on the person. You know, it's as simple as that. It's not simple, but I've always felt that to be the clue of the whole social interaction of hair between the stylist and the person, which doesn't exist with makeup or nails or any other close, somewhat touchy kind of thing. It doesn't exist. The hairdresser and the person whose hair you're doing, it's a little bit like sex. She gives it to you, you give it to her. Equal. That is the bottom line.
And sometimes it's best to stay quiet, and that's exactly it. Just do the job, and the most of the communicating will just be do this, do that, and it must also be a joy to see them smile when they see their hair done. That must be a joy, because you're like, wow, my task is complete.
I would be actively yucking away possibly before.
Oh yeah,
I've gotten extremely well. People keep telling me that in drawing people out. I have become an expert in thinking up questions that people are like, oh yeah, and giving answers. You need that. If you're afraid to ask certain questions, and I'm not talking about intimate necessarily, although I've crossed that line 1,000 times, but just who, what, where, how, what. Just give me a little bit of open up a little bit so I know where I am. Bottom line.
Absolutely.
But then when I start cutting, please, I need to think. I need to what I'm not aware of. Okay.
This is a crazy question. Hopefully you got an answer for this. If you were to hypothetically style one last person's hair, who would you want to work with? It could be someone who's, passed away, or somebody that's present. who would you want to cut one last time, never again, you're done for good? Who would you want that person to be and why?
To style would be Cleopatra, and to cut would be Michelle Obama.
Simple as that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. I know now, looking, there isn't a lot about you online. I know you used to have a wiki page, but there isn't a lot there's a few articles, but I know there's other things that you do besides haircutting, clay, I believe, some art stuff. But would love to hear, what sort of things are you doing now? Have you ever considered writing a book about your life or even a documentary?
A documentary is in the works, has been for a couple of years.
Okay.
Trying to get the financing together, which obviously was hard for a while. So that is, but it is by people. It's their project. I have no hand in it further. I'm just open for it. And yes, I'm writing a book.
Ooh.
Writing.
Yeah.
I'm organizing all my stuff so that I can at some point create, either before I die or leave it for my kids to come up with it, to make a nice record of my life for the young kids that are interested.
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to see that book once it's finished. That documentary. But you've lived such an amazing life. I always ask my guests before I end the interview, what would they like to pass on to any number of the people listening? Even advice that you've given, whether it be styling hair, an actor, any jobs. What advice would you give?
Burn bridges. Yeah. Of course, everybody will say that. Be true to yourself if you have found yourself, and don't worry about looking too hard, because you are already yourself. Just recognize it and follow the cues. But you got to be kind. This whole right now, or not right now, or in the past. I'm a big history buff lately, and I'm shocked to see that, yeah, even if a little bit of American history, so much garbage, so much crap, so much fighting among. Not to talk about Europe, where I come from, and England was like one big murderous scene for 1,000 years, in Holland, and then the slavery and the this and the that.
Yeah.
And then we got Russia going, and we thought it was all going to be all right. And then we got one guy who's got another thing going, and we're back where we started 20 years ago. Even though all my Russian friends were, we're over it. We're all going to be friends together. And then we don't. And then we got Trump over here, and yay.
Yeah.
No, there is only one answer, man. Not greedy. Don't be too greedy, and please be kind. Please be kind and friendly to each other. There is no reason not to be friendly to each other. No reason not to be kind to each other. Bottom line, as far as I can see it.